It's our job. You are now in the top 10 MLS coaching. Just, hey, what does that mean? And was there a point you thought about coaching? Because your dad obviously coached community, and Walter was.
No. I can tell you the story on the record because Adrian's standing over there. So I get a phone call in 2001, late 2001, and it's from a guy by the name of Adrian Hanauer. And I'm like, going, who's this guy? He wants to meet and talk about the Sounders. I'm like, going, does he want to talk about soccer camps? Because we were doing soccer camp, doing something. And I go, I got to drop my kids off at school first, and I'll come meet you. And then we meet at the Tully's up by St. Joe's, and Neil Farnsworth is there. And Neil Farnsworth was one of the owners back in the day, and I knew it was more than soccer camps. And we had a conversation, the three of us. It was out of the blue, unexpected. I must have said something good in the interview because they hired me shortly thereafter. I did call Bernie James, who was a coach at the time, because he's my buddy. And I did ask him, I say, hey, look, these guys are talking about coaching. And he goes, yeah, I know, I just got fired. So it was a bit of sad news because I like Bernie. I think he did a good job. But it was my opportunity, and it was unexpected.
And then one more, just what did you learn from Ziggy, and how did that help you?
Well, I'd love to start with Ziggy, but I'm going to go back even further.
Sure.
So I'm going to go with Alan, my first coach. I learned a lot of management stuff. Even Ron Newman coached me for 4 years there, a couple of old school guys. Then, Jimmy Gabriel was there, my mentor when I first started in the USL days when Adrian first hired me. Jimmy Gabriel was a massive influence in how I coached. And then Zig. He saved maybe the best for last. I learned everything about the league, his memory, he could remember facts and notes and figures, and this guy played well over here and this guy played well over there. He was an encyclopedia of knowledge, and I still use some of the things that he does today, how we travel, why we travel, some of those things. I still use those today. So I've had a long list of really good mentors which prepared me. So when my opportunity did come, because you guys have heard me, I say like Masowski was ready for his opportunity. Paul Rothrock was ready for his opportunity. And I was the same because I had a lot of good mentors to help me when I first took over.
You've put a huge, imprint in MLS overall, but what does the word legacy, mean to you? What is the legacy that Brian has kind of left?
That's probably best someone else should answer. What I would say that the legacy of this club, starting way back in the 70s, has always been that we are a club that wins. Okay, that's important. I think the connection between the fans and the players is something that this club has a legacy of. And it wasn't me. I mean, maybe I came up with that saying, but, the Carnations, the first players that came, Pepe Fernandez, Dave Gillett. We've had big players here at the club. I remember Clint and Oba walking at Starfire. I mean, that really connection, the touch points between the fans and some of our players is part of the DNA of the club. So there's a lot of things to our legacy, and I'm just one piece of it.
When you played, did you have a mind about coaching later on in life?
No. We were worried about winning and then where we were going to go out after the game.
Hey, Brian, I got a tactical question. I tried. You gave us homework on your post game. I tried in defending in your 4-4-2. When you come, I don't know if you can say this on camera, but when you're in your 4-2-3-1, how do the two guys up front figure out who should go? I mean, how does that come back then?
Well, a lot of times it's just who they are, because Albert and Jordan did it last year. Now Albert Masowski, it looks different when Jesus is there and, other guys. So a lot of that is just personality. Some guys like to press, other guys are thinkers, they look behind them. Some of that is that. Some of it is just we want to control. And the ball naturally moves to one side, and then that guy has certain responsibilities when the ball comes in his area of the field. So some of that is scripted, some of that is just their personality, and other times it's just the way the game is shaping up.
So LAFC this week, and then worry about Portland later. But what challenges are LAFC going to bring you tomorrow? Do you think with factoring maybe some rotation?
Well, they're starting to figure it out. He went to a back line of 4. He's, obviously he's disappointed about the result in up in Vancouver, but they're playing better. They're playing well. He's got a little bit higher pressing team at home. Which in years past they were more transition team, wait for you in transition, but they've been a little more aggressive, so we'll be ready for them.
You're just in Houston and now Los Angeles, to the 2 destinations for the playoffs, the road wins last year. When you go to a place that so recently you had a big result, does that, you feel any little bit in the locker room like, all right, we're back here where we got a result just so on months ago?
Confident in every road game. I think we've had a good road record throughout our history in MLS. I think we've been one of the better road teams. Part of that is just, our messaging is, we don't change a lot. Maybe there's subtle tweaks, but we don't change a lot from home to away. We like to try and have teams change based on what we're doing. So
It looked like Ferreira was full on practice.
100% ready to go, anxious to score.
Jackson and Jordan obviously a ways
They're
back.
training off to the side, but they're on the grass.
Brian.
We talk about a lot of the players staying in MLS versus going abroad for their development. How do you feel about coaches that stay in the MLS? Because it seems that there aren't a lot of opportunities on MLS versus coaches going abroad, and with coach of LAFC going to Germany now, the coach from Vancouver coming from abroad and having a big impact.
Well, I think what I would say there, as far as coaching is concerned, because it's an interesting question. Everybody talks about American players going and doing well over in Europe, but not many people talk about American coaches over there. There's some coaches in Germany that have done well, that have come from the United States, from different, they had different opportunities, different paths. Steve played many, many years in Germany. His wife and family are from there. I think that's a personal choice. I'll ask him when I'm down there today or tonight or tomorrow after the game. But as far as opportunity, there are certain logistical requirements. You need your UEFA Pro license now to coach over there. You need your USSF Pro license to coach here. So you can have a UEFA A and come here, but you can't have just a USSF, which I have the Pro. I can't just go over there and coach. So there's different things that you have to navigate. But it's an interesting question, and I'm sure that more guys want to come here, and there might be some coaches that want to test their skill, overseas.
Ryan, how much emphasis have you put, or has there been, in terms of passing from the back? I know we talked about Stephen Fry doing, but Yamar, I think one of the goals was one of his passes. Has there been an emphasis in trying to, especially the fullbacks? We get Christian and
we always want to try and play out from the back because it's common sense. So if you kick a long ball, it becomes 50-50. Your chances are 50-50. If you start with possession, you actually have the ball 100% of the time. Now, you might not make 10 passes, 20 passes, and a goal like we did against Houston, but you're starting with the ball instead of starting with a scrum. So that's kind of the tactic behind, or the common sense behind it. The various tactics we use depend on the opponent and nuances.
This was another strong, solid win for your team. When you look at this run of form, if you could think of one thing that maybe kind of has clicked for this team, what would that be?
Well, I think the start, after the San Diego game, I think there was a determination within the squad. There was, a couple of hard conversations amongst coaches. And I think the group as a collective just wanted to raise the level of our training. And that has, happened, and the results have followed. So I think just the preparation, the determination, the gritty win down in Dallas, maybe it started us off, maybe grit, you could throw that in there. But, I think it was just overall, we knew we were underperforming and we needed to dig ourselves out of the hole. And we've started to do that. We're not there yet. We've started to do that.
Love it. When it comes to Ryan Kent, he just talked about him being a leader with the ball. What have you seen? I mean, we've seen on the field, but what have you seen out of him as a leader, what he could represent for this group?
Well, he leads by example. I mean, he's still getting to know his teammates, and he's not going to come in and, I don't think he did the, Nico Ladero come in and turn the music off, like, that announced his, and everybody's like, whoa, he didn't do that. He's a different kind of leader. He does, the stuff that he does on the ball, you can tell he's a good soccer player, and his teammates know that he's a good soccer player. And so that type of leadership can be powerful.
His preparation, he talked about that he watched Seattle Sounder games before he got here, and obviously
Love it. You love when a guy is serious about getting his career jump started again, and he's doing the work to be prepared. Love it.
Thanks, guys.